on the Rochford Files, on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook Live, and as I said before we officially went live, the first guest of the show is local rapper Sonny Cay.
Yes, sir. Follow me on YouTube, on SoundCloud, on Apple Music, on Spotify. Sorry, Andrew, I got to get this in. SonnyCay. And excuse my dog.
Yes, we got a big day of news to go into today. There's probably the most important thing going on isn't even happening in the United States right now. It's more going on, more violence being done to the Palestinians by the Israelis. And it's important to speak about this issue because the United States government is pro-Israel. Is there anything you'd like to get in before we dive into this article on what's happened since late last night?
Yeah, I since you mentioned that we were going to be talking about it, I was looking into it. I was aware that the Palestinians were always being mistreated by the Israeli government, and I always kind of felt like it was similar to how the United States government treated minorities um, in its local big cities, I should say, and I mean everywhere, obviously, but mainly in these big southern cities, and it's wrong. I am Jewish, and I've always kind of been torn in between supporting Israel because you've grown up being taught that that's like our pride and that's our heritage. And then you turn around, you grow up, and you look at what they're doing to a lot of innocent people, and it's obviously just not right. So it's just something that I've been paying attention to for a long time, and I'm very glad you wanted to talk about it today.
Yes, I'm sure that there's a lot of white leftists out there who wouldn't want to touch this issue right now, but you have to. Just being a domestic ally isn't good enough. You have to speak out against imperialism as well.
Yeah, 100% agree, Andrew. And I mean, if you are being, if you're compromising, even if you are in the middle because you don't want to offend anybody, then, you're kind of, in my opinion, you're in the way too. So like you said, it's a must talk about, and it's more than a must talk about, though. I hope that more people than just us are doing something about this.
I'm eventually going to figure out how to screen share this article. For now, I'm going to read this article from Al Jazeera since it looks to have a better framing. Several Palestinians have been killed in an Israeli air raid in the besieged Gaza Strip, according to the Palestinian Health Ministry, after Hamas launched rockets from the coastal territory towards Israel. The Gaza Health Ministry said on Monday that 9 Palestinians, including 3 children, were killed in a series of strikes in northern Gaza. The strikes came after Hamas fired several rockets at Israel after the expiration of the group's ultimatum demanding Israel stand down forces in the Al-Aqsa Mosque compound in Jerusalem. Earlier Monday at the compound, the third holiest in Islam, which is also recovered by Jews, escalated with more than 300 Palestinians wounded after Israeli police stormed the mosque, firing rubber bullets, stun grenades, and tear gas. I'll get more into the latest updates in the moment, but what are your thoughts after hearing this, Sonny?
Yeah, I mean, like when you hear that, it's heartbreaking, right? Like, it's just, I wouldn't say I'm an expert in this subject, but it just feels like people who deserve um, reparations are just obviously being treated with the exact opposite. They're abused. It sounds like, they're not being heard on subjects that obviously need to be heard on, and again, more than that, need to be doing something about it. But I was reading a article similar, and it was actually written from a Jerusalem uh, writer, but they were more on the side of the Palestinians in this, and it was actually, I heard somebody was driving a motorcycle or something, and they had been bombed like randomly. It was just a random strike on the Gaza Strip, and they were just, and it wounded up to. I want to make sure this is correct. Um, um, they
Yes, you brought
wounded.
up a good point, though, because
Yeah,
I remember last night before going to bed, I saw a video of someone in a car running over Palestinians as well, and that just looked like a scene you'd see in a lot of big cities, especially over the summer with these George Floyd protests.
absolutely, exactly, and it's just. It's way more than not looking at people as human, but it's just it's very unfortunate, and to me, Andrew, I always wonder, like, just what is the next step, and so many of these world domestic or yeah issues where the poor are not being heard, and it's just, like I said, it's heartbreaking, and I feel as if we both can speak from a place of privilege, so where we are fortunate enough to look at it through a different lens almost, and then it's like when you think of it that way, you're like how is that even right? So, I just my heart goes out to all the victims in Palestine and obviously the victims everywhere who are facing systemic, racism, inequality, and all, and prejudices.
Yes, now let's get into some of these recent updates from that. As Palestinians just got recently hit with some rocket attacks since that scene that happened this morning from the mosque.
Yeah, and I wanted to get the number of the amount of people who were injured by this. I didn't see the number of fatalities. I'm sorry, I had it on this I had it brought up, and now I cannot find this number. But yeah, but either way, regardless, I want to say it was in the upper hundreds, and it was just like it's ridiculous, and it just sounds like like how like normal this is like over there. It's just like it's sickening, and you know it's funny you brought it up because it's like I think about it. I'm like, it obviously isn't going away, but the amount that the media will report on, it's interesting because of, like you said, our ties to the Israeli government. It's not right at all.
Yes, and as you see in the United States, it's a very strong pro Israel slant. These Israeli officers get the same type of training that officers in the United States get as well. Then you've also got this current well, this government in general supports pro-Israel, and you have to be against them on this stance.
100%. There's just, to me, like I said, you can't be in the middle about it either. You've got to, exactly, you've got to stand on something here, because this is no different than what's going on here in America. And you know, I wish, I wish, to me, that in America I saw more about this, just in general. I wish I saw more links to funds, and my mom and I have actually thought about starting one. We talked about it over the last couple of years, but we find ourselves stuck, like where to really get started. And because it's like you said, it's just not, it's not really, it's not talked about as much as it should be. And so, uh, like I said, I hope there's people out there who are doing more.
Yes, this isn't something that's happened recently. This has been an ongoing abuse by the Israelis.
Yeah, and I wish I could give you like the year this really started. I'm like I said, I wish I was more, um, I had more expertise in this subject. But I just know that this has been. I have friends who are Palestinian in Denver, and they're very strong on this subject in terms of, you know, not like it's not just something that's like it's bad over there, but like it can wait. No, this is poverty at an like you wouldn't imagine, and the population density in Palestine, or in where these people were in Israel at one point and they got pushed out. Obviously, we all know that, but where they are now, the density in these communities, and then the conditions that they're forced to live under, and it just seems to go very unnoticed and ignored. But like you said,
Yes,
a long time. Sorry, a long time of this.
yeah, I don't pretend to be an expert on this either, but I can refer you to someone who I feel will have great coverage of this, as especially with the events going on today. I would recommend waiting to see how Rania Kalik will respond to it. I think she's one of the best people on the left for to see what she has to say about this.
Okay. I don't think I've heard of her, Andrew. Who can you who what is she
Yeah, so I'll give you a couple of links to her what she does. She hosts a podcast called Left Bitches Who Are Right. Then she also just recently started to work on with Breakthrough News. So go to youtube.com/breakthrough news. And she co-hosts that weekly show with Eugene Puryear. Then the other project she works on is Unauthorized Disclosure with Kevin Gostola.
I will definitely look into her, because yes, anybody who is really into this subject, I appreciate them. I really do, because you're doing something that a lot of people would even be scared to get into, and understandably, yeah, you don't even know where to start on that subject.
And just before I went live, I saw this article from The Guardian, and it was about Gwyneth Paltrow saying the worst thing she'd gone through during this quarantine was having to just eat bread. And it just feels extremely pale in comparison to the amount of deaths that we had during COVID.
Yeah.
And when you hear about events like today in Jerusalem and how it's the Palestinians have been under attack for a very long time, hearing celebrity stories like that come out just feels like they just do a really poor job at reading the room.
You said it. Yeah, you said it 100%. Like, just not a time that we need to hear that. Probably not ever a time we need to hear that. I don't know where they get off, but no offense to Gwyneth Paltrow, because she's not the only one who. It's ridiculous how these celebrities feel the need to just put themselves in the conversation for stuff that really doesn't even. We all know you're not really dealing with it at that level, so maybe just keep that to yourself in the future.
And the fact that, I mean, I get that people are going to ask them questions like these at times, but the way I would answer is there's definitely much more serious issues that have affected people in a much worse way.
You think about the amount of people who've lost not just work, but you know, loved ones, way of life. The amount of people who've been either forced to stay in their house, or the amount of people who are forced to go out and deal with the risk of COVID every day because they don't have a choice. They have to go make a livable wage to pay their mortgage and their bills. And sorry, are we good, Andrew? Sorry, I might be having some technical difficulties. Excuse me, but yes, the amount of people who are really going through it at the worst level, we need to, like, if you are in any position that you have not been totally just ravaged by this by this illness, by this disease, then you really need to be more considerate of people who are going through it at the worst levels. It's just, come on, guys, we can do so much better as a community. Andrew, I'm having trouble hearing you, my brother. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, you're not. There we go. I hear you
Yeah,
now. Sorry.
yeah. For some reason, the mic stopped working for a moment.
It's all right. Could you repeat what you said? That last, um, what you had just
Yes.
said? Yeah.
Well, the thing I wanted to move to next was talking about an important issue on the left, and that's the general strike.
Yeah. And that's a good transition, obviously, because COVID and work right now, they are hand in hand, and people need to get paid if we're going to be, and it's just made people wake up, I feel, where, big corporation and the government in general kind of feels about them, and how they perceive them. And they're not gonna. I like it, Andrew. I like our. It's not everybody, but it's a good amount of people in our generation who are really going to stand up to the big dogs, and you can appreciate that.
Yes, well, over this past week and a half, we've been seeing a lot of photos uh, being placed on drive-through windows and And main doors like these,
I saw.
it takes a,
Sorry, yeah,
yeah,
I'm seeing it now. Exactly. Is that the Sonic in Ohio? That's I saw three different cases of managers just saying, "I'm out of here. I'm not dealing with this anymore." And of course, you got a lot of people upset with how. Oh, that's a Wendy's. Excuse me, but I saw Ohio had three different Sonics with like 11 combined workers who just quit in like over one weekend. It's it's unbelievable because it's taken so long for you know fast food workers and other workers who are being paid minimum wage to finally demand um, proper compensation. And you've seen this in Southern America. You've seen this all across the world, like recently. And you see it at a much larger scale too, as it's much more normal around the world for people to demand their wages, and I'm glad that we're finally, I hope we take a stand in that right direction as well.
and this was at a Dollar General. The first sign says Google General strike and learn how we can take our power back. To our loyal customers who treated us with respect, thank you. We love you. And that next sign says closed indefinitely because Dollar General doesn't pay a living wage or treat their employees with respect. And this next sign is capitalism will destroy this country if you don't pay people enough to live with their lives. Why should they slave away from you? And the final sign is thank you for the sodas, Joe. And this gets into a point I wanted to make about the general strike, and that is that the left doesn't have the numbers yet to perform a mass scale general strike. We aren't to that point yet. Like, we could be if we get people to come out for worker rights in the same way that we came out and protested against police brutality in the summer, but we don't have enough numbers for that yet. But there is one thing we can do for now, and that is for workers to continue to use our leverage on the free market and continue to not apply for these jobs, leave them vacant.
100% agree, Andrew. And it's funny because we just got done with an administration that their entire campaign was built off jobs. It was like every bad thing that happened in Trump's campaign, you could guarantee that he was going to say, "Hey, but look at all the jobs I got for people." And yet, you got, what was it, 40% unemployment rates when he passed or when Joe Biden was eventually elected. And it's just hilarious the facade we keep up in this country that like we are this rich, like powerful nation, and yet you got like almost half of our people are poor, and we're begging for just some sort of leniency. People have to beg not to work 7 days a week, and I read something, Andrew, where those same Sonics, they were paying $8, or the very minimum in Ohio, which I believe was 8.55 an hour, and then they eventually were those workers who quit were all eligible for manager position, and they eventually quit because the Sonics cut their wage in half and turned it into a tip sort of income, and so it was like $4 and tips now. And it's like you're at a Sonic, you're not at a freaking Elway's restaurant. You're not you're not going to be getting tips to where you could be making $4 an hour and still being able to afford rent. And if you afford rent, what else are you? How are you? I just don't understand how people are expected to survive on these low wages. And you got, I appreciate you guys. Is that In and Out? That's probably the new ones in Colorado that are. It's probably all of them, but 17 to 1950. There's so many people who can.
Notice the price.
Is that what they're? Is that the opening? Is that the opening wages?
Yes, they people want to try to tell you that prices are automatically going to rise and inflate in a huge way if we increase wages. But this is a good example of how that's a myth. And there's a lot of countries out there like Denmark who pay workers at fast food workers $20 an hour, and their food prices are roughly this on average to what you would see here.
Look, I can't say this is 100% true, but it came from somebody who, oh, I can't remember the exact name, but it's somebody with a lot of respect, and he was saying that if you were to make the minimum wage $15 at Taco Bell, you'd be paying roughly 60 cents more for your burrito or your entire meal. Even it was literally no difference, and it's just funny how many people are blinded by corporatism, or it's just I I pray that more people get on board, because the number one thing I hear in rebuttal to fast food workers not being paid livable wages is, well, my job only pays me $19 or $17. If you're going to pay the fast food workers 17 or $19, like, why did I just spend 4 or 8 years getting my degree? It's possible, my man, that you're being underpaid as well, and that's just, I'm sorry, but it's the fact that your income is enough for a livable um it's a livable income, and the people who are making less than $10 or even less than $12 or less than $15 in some states, you can argue that they don't have a livable income, and we need to address that first. But we will address, hopefully, all jobs that are underpaid, because believe me, it's not just fast food workers who are underpaid in this country, not even close.
Yes, we got to get past this whole uh, narrative where it's the fear mongering over how product will rise again. We have to get to the point where we counter that narrative with talking about how much more spending power people can have when their wages go up while
Yes.
trying to keep product relatively low, about the same with the without tying the inflation up too high as well.
100%. And that's, again, that's what should matter, right? What we can afford, not about what stuff costs. And that's that's exactly where the whole conversation starts. It's, like, how does the normal American see themselves living comfortably? And I think for a lot of rich people, they need to look themselves in the mirror and probably say, like, um, you know, like, maybe, like, this is too much, right? And I'm looking at, see 40% unemployment rate. I see these poverty percentages increasing every year, and me personally, I would just want to help. I would want to, kind of even things out. But I feel on the job market, that's where we can start, right? That's where we can address a lot of these issues. Is we can get people working, we can get people enjoying their work, we can get people compensated, like actually compensated for their work. And you wouldn't see these unemployment rates. Unemployment is not about how many jobs are available. I mean, to an extent it is, but it's really about the jobs that people want to work. It's the jobs that you know people would work more of these jobs that are looked at as like hell jobs if they were paid better. You wouldn't. you wouldn't worry about working at a McDonald's if they paid 20 an hour at the beginning. You might like it. You might think, dang, this could actually be like an intro to like my culinary career. But no, you look at it like you're an embarrassment almost, and that's how a lot of people in this, in this generation, not just in America, but in our world, they would probably look at fast food workers, and it's just such a problem, and it's so problematic.
Yes, so let's go back to the big stimulus bill that passed back in early March and how one of the things that the $15 minimum wage was the thing that AOC said that she was going to fight for instead of trying to force a vote on Medicare for all, and how they let Joe Manchin and Kristen Sinema and 6 other Democrats be leverage against this $15 minimum wage. Then it comes out after that there's even quite a few of these big food chains that were lobbying behind the scenes against making sure wage increase doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that's believable. That's corporatism for you, and it's just, when does it stop? Like, when do we finally just say enough is enough? We deserve to be paid. You see how long capitalism has just destroyed this country. Like, and it's yeah, it's maddening. Sorry, Andrew, I don't want to go into all of that, but just in general, when we're like, people deserve to live, people deserve to eat, people deserve to not work 70 hours a week to put food on the table. It's just so, it's heartbreaking to me. It's just it's like modern day slavery to me, in my opinion. Obviously, certain and at certain jobs, it's a lot worse than others. I'm not comparing everybody's job to slavery, but you see a lot of people who are just forced to work stuff when they're either physically incapable, mentally incapable, and all because they literally have to. And then not to spin totally out of context, but then the government turns around and they wonder why your suicide numbers are up, your depression numbers are up, your young drug use is up. Like, we've got to look ourselves in the mirror, man. We've got to do better.
And I wanted to get into this. There's going to be a strike going on with McDonald's next Wednesday, May 19th, and it's important that we have solidarity and try to help these people with creating the artificial wage increase. Just like I suggested, we don't have the numbers to do a full out general strike, but we can do it on a small scale. We can continue to boycott not applying for these fast food and retail jobs and use that as leverage to force these corporations to raise their wages up. But it's only going to be it's going to be the road to the big general strike that's going to happen down the road. But we also need a much better base of mutual aid before we can get fully down that road.
100% agree. And Andrew, I actually want to ask you a question. If you had to say, when do you believe a general strike in America, like, what are we on pace for in terms of when we're seeing that?
Well, I think that going to be at least it's going to be at least a couple years away, in my opinion.
Yeah.
There's just a lot of work that we have to do in order to build up to a full-fledged general strike. But if we do it at the right time, the impacts of it could be big. Like if it happens around the next election, we'll be bringing a lot of presidential, a lot of candidates all over the country could be forced into doing things that they don't normally want to do if they had to see general strikes be the main issue.
Yeah, and I would agree. These things usually take time on a larger scale. You saw with the police brutality how that built up over time, but I will say that police brutality has been something that has been tried to be addressed by the masses for a long time, and um, that goes back to the LA riots, obviously, and Rodney King. But here's but we've had general strikes in America before. I'm not particular when the last one was, but I'm sorry, I should know that, but it just seems to me that this is built up over time. Like it seems like for me personally, my cousins, they graduated in 2010 and 2008, and I just remember that both of them, like the enthusiasm they got from getting a degree and, and like communications or, business, and just not being able to do anything with those degrees. And it just really made me look at college and, the job market and just, life in general differently, because it just feels like, on a to a certain extent, Andrew, like getting your degree these days is almost a scam. Like it's kind of it's not, it has its benefits, but the fact that it's no guarantees in a country that claims to be like the best country, the example, it kind of seems, I don't know, it seems a little bit fishy to me.
Yes, I do agree with you that I do regret the path that I taken in college. I went too deep down the journalism route, and now I'm to the point where I've put too much money into college and I can't even try to correct course and do something that I thought would make more sense. Because if I had to do it over again, I would have tried to do more political science.
Okay. And you're not the and by any means you are not the only one. I could count on both my hands the amount of friends I have who spent so much money and either did not finish college or didn't get anywhere with the degree that they graduated with. And my brother, shout out to my brother, he just graduated last Friday, and we're talking about it. I'm like, man, like you gotta have you can never put your eggs all in one basket in America. You literally have to have a backup plan for your backup plan, because nothing's guaranteed, and especially in some of these fields that are like less that are less appreciated almost. You even think of like where like renewable energy is right now. We probably don't have the amount of people we really need in renewable energy to truly get somewhere. But it's like, yeah, there's just no guarantees, and it's crazy. Like you could spend 8 years, 12 years getting a degree, you might not have a job after that. That's just, and that's the reality of things.
Yes, something that I felt has really gone downhill since the 90s. I have pretty much most of my siblings have jobs where they require college degrees now, and
Hmm.
they were able to get them due to connections and not having as strong as requirements as they do now.
Okay. Yeah, and that's what you hear a lot, right? It's who you know, not what you know, and that's kind of, I find that to be so true, just on so many levels, and in our, not just in America, I'm sure it's everywhere, and um, but that's here, and this brings us back, and it can wrap it up, it could tie it into the livable wages or topic that we're on. It's that, look, if there's so much uncertainty on the job market, so much uncertainty on in so many of these fields, we need to be paying people the livable wages at the lowest level so that people can actually take time to evaluate and see what they want to do with their lives, and they're not literally pulling out their hair paycheck to paycheck, and they have literally no time to think about anything else they want to pursue. It's like that to me is one of the number one reasons why we've got to pay people.
Oh yeah, you brought up a great point, and I wanted to get into talking about UBI now. And well, current New York mayor candidate Andrew Yang was the one who brought it to the forefront. But it's going to be a thing that is really going to alleviate the pressures of finding a job if in a two-person household, one person can live off of UBI while the other person can go for the best high paying job that they're capable of getting.
Exactly. It's it's more than necessary. It's like I keep coming back to it. It just shocks me how, like you said, it's going to take a couple years to get into a real general strike. I'm surprised we're already not there with the amount of people not working. It just seems like we got time. But I'll tell you, not to like feed into that to that type of propaganda, but you could argue with this with COVID and the quarantining that a lot of people are just smoking weed. You know what? We're living life. We're trying to really just focus on our loved ones, ourselves, and we're telling you that you know a lot of places legalizing weed. And you know what? I wouldn't be shocked if a lot of these these state governments were, you know, in a way like passing these weed bills and whatnot to kind of like get some sort of distraction from these bigger issues that we should be focusing on. But it just seems to me that everybody I talk to when it comes to in terms of work, it's like they will literally either tell me I'm working or nope, I'm smoking weed. And it's just pretty funny. Like that's the connection that you have with those two.
Yes, I wanted to go off in a different direction, but before I do, I wanted to make the point on how Andrew Yang's the UBI he presented was conditional based, where you have to choose between that or let go of other welfare programs. But the way that socialists like myself would want it is you have the social welfare programs and the UBI in addition to that.
Right.
And I plan to get into it more but Andrew Yang has really proven that he's really just another neoliberal who has some fake populist and right libertarian branding.
Mm. Yeah, that's Andrew. Like you have been a good person. When I look at your tweets, I it really reassures me that you really can't trust anybody. Like you really just can't. And it's unfortunate because growing up, you wanted to believe that one side was better than the other, but when you look at it, one side's really full of shit, and the other side they don't pretend to be full of shit. So it's hard, and I really respected what we're going to talk about later with Bobby Valentine is, I like this new age of independents who are getting more leverage too. Like when you think of a person like Kanye West who can get that many votes in a such a crucial election, you're like, well, you stop and think for a second. You're like, well, actual capable independent could really maybe make some noise here soon. Like we might be getting into that age.
Yes, I would say think about he got like 60,000 votes and he only campaigned for like 2 months. Think
That's
about if he had
embarrassing.
started his campaign back in January of last year instead.
It's embarrassing. I don't think a lot of his fans even believed he was actually going to do it. And then with like 2 weeks before the election, he was like, "Yeah, I'm still doing it." And he got 60,000 people sporadically to be like, "Okay, yeah, I'll go vote for Kanye." And it's embarrassing, but it's also like if you really like think about it, like, dude, somebody who is for the right things on every level could actually, I'm telling you, they could actually get somewhere with that. And I think the people in the age of the internet, we would get behind that in a big way.
Yes, as of right now, I think the best candidate in 2024 to be uh, for a left third party, just to make sure they reach that 5% threshold, would be Jesse Ventura. He's progressively moved further left ever since his run in as Minnesota governor. He used to be more like a center independent, but when you hear him now, he sounds way further left.
Okay.
He believes now that the most a rich person should make in a year is $12 million.
Wow. That's extreme. That's that's levels that we've never seen before. But I agree. He is very progressive. Like I really appreciate that because I think, and it's sad that the George Floyd case has really opened up a few people's eyes, like actually to how bad things are right now. But hey, I'm sorry. Like that's what it took. Like better them to realize at some point than never, right? And it sounds like he's one of those people that may have been on the I don't want to offend anybody side, and now he's like, you know what? Hey, fuck that. We're not taking this anymore, and I'm with the people, and you appreciate that.
Yes, and Ventura was, well, he was always one of the first people, one of the, well, among famous people trying to call for teams to remove their racist names like Washington, Atlanta, Cleveland. He was probably one of the first famous people to be on that movement.
Okay.
And look, now we've at least got one of the names removed. I'm still wondering how long it's going to take for the Washington football team to get their name, but I understand that they've also got to get this little scandal cleared up before they do that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And it's not even just names at this point. Like, I mean, it is. You got the Kansas City Chiefs, you got Atlanta Braves, you got I even think the Chicago Blackhawks, man. Like we gotta be better than that. Cleveland Indians, we gotta be ahead of that. Like I'm sorry, like if I'm the Blackhawks manage or ownership, I'm looking at ourselves like, hey, that might be coming. Like we probably need to think about a name change. But in terms of Jesse Ventura, like I really appreciate that, and it's impressive because it's hard when you're in a position of power. It's like you can be famous, you don't have power necessarily, and he's got power, and he's really it sounds like doing. He's trying to put the attention on the right things, which is like I'm telling you, racial justice injustices should be at the top of the list every time for any candidate who thinks that they're gonna wipe uh like leftist or real independents off their feet. Like you're gonna have to come with it, and it sounds like Jesse's off to a good start.
And a point that I've been making since the election ended is the DNC isn't going to give us a chance at a primary to try to get a progressive in this time around. It the nomination is pretty much either Joe Biden or Kamala Harris. They're going to block off any progressive challengers. No progressive within the party is going to challenge them, and they're going to make sure that any progressive outside the party isn't going to have a chance to get a fair challenge either.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for anybody who didn't see this coming. Like it's time to wake up a little bit because look, you can argue that they need 8 years to do anything, but let's be honest, if Joe Biden's real interest was the American people in this country, And like Camilla Harris, same thing. Like they really were honest about that and they really wanted that, then that would not be a like we would already have somebody who was like, hey, like he needs Joe better stay on his toes because that guy he could he could take that. But Andrew, I didn't vote. I don't care about talking about this. I did not vote. I don't care how bad Trump was. I was not going to be blinded again by the left candidate who was literally trying to push a bunch of shit under the rug just so that we could stop having all this tension on our country, like all on every level. But I was not about to vote for Joe Biden just because he was a tiny bit better than Donald Trump. And it's because of stuff like this, because I knew he does not have the general American's best interests at heart. And I'm not talking about the middle class general American. I'm talking about the lower to lower middle class general American, because that's whose life we need to be focused on right now. And if what we're going to focus on is what we can control, that's what we need to be doing right now. And I'm sorry, he's full of shit, Andrew.
Yes, there is just as much difference between them. If you wanted to vote for him to make things more humane at the border, he's doing the opposite. He's not even doing the small progressive things that he said he would do, such as he abandoned the public option. He's not really fighting for the $15 minimum wage. He's still pro coup in countries like Venezuela. So there's a lot of ways where he still wants to increase funding on the police, even more slightly more so than Donald Trump, and we're supposed to think that he's the pro-black candidate.
Yeah. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, Andrew. That's unfortunately how American politics work. And let me make it clear, fuck Donald Trump. Okay, he was the biggest embarrassment to American politics ever. But the fact that we turned around and we basically just said, okay, we fucked up. We need to just get anybody in there now. It tells me we didn't learn anything. We did not learn a goddamn thing. And all people would conveniently like to do, or, I guess the average middle class person would like to do, is literally just move on, bruh, and pretend that this shit is not happening. A lot of this stuff isn't happening. And a lot of people like to pretend they care about certain topics and um, certain injustices to get cookie points, but that lasts only so long. And I bring that up because it's too many people. It's just way too many people. How fast your Twitter timeline will turn back to just general entertainment or jokes or whatever, just trolling off of actual important topics, just tells you how fickle we are as a community, and really just the amount of band-aids we continue to put on just problems that this country is just stacking up, and it's not enough people care about it, Andrew.
Yeah, I wanted to start to get into that Bobby Valentine article that came out this Friday.
Hey, I'd vote for Bobby if I'm a Stanford resident. Vote for Bobby.
Yes, I'm not truly sure. I'm going to wait and see what his platform is about. But let's get into this article real quick.
You're right. I'm
At
sorry.
age 70, former Mets manager Bobby Valentine is entering the political arena. The longtime baseball man announced Friday that he will run as an independent candidate for mayor of his hometown, Stamford, Connecticut. My experience turning around troubled organizations in challenging periods has taught me that a crisis calls for a leader who knows how to adapt on a moment's notice. Valentine wrote in a supplement to his campaign video. I'm proud to be driven by empathy and passion. We all win when we are committed to increase access to a quality life for all.
Yeah, I went through his campaign video. I watched the 3 minute video and I read a couple of articles regarding his running. And look, it sounds like, he's somebody who is familiar with the community and sounds like he's for the right things. I like that he's running as an independent, as we said earlier. For people who don't know, Bobby Valentine is most famous for. I mean, he was obviously a Major League Baseball player, but taking over for Terry Francona, this is a man who has seen the worst in American people. He, Andrew, when he took over for Terry, they won 69 games in 2012. And for people who are into sports, Red Sox fans do not take kindly to their baseball team losing. So I'm sure this is a man who has kind of a general feeling for how people work in general. And it, I mean, I saw a fair representation in the campaign video. That's obviously not a good like measuring stick, but like I'm honestly, for me, Andrew, in 2021, I like to see representation. That's where it starts. We need to be hearing voices. We need to be hearing from everybody, and if Bobby's somebody who can recognize that in Stanford, which it sounds like, hopefully he is, um, then he's got my support.
Well, for now, I'm gonna wait and see what that entails, but let's continue this article. Since retiring from the baseball world in 2013, Valentine has worked as the athletic director for Sacred Heart University in Fairfield, Connecticut, while also operating Bobby B's restaurant and sports bar in Stamford. This is not the first potential foray into politics. In 2016, Valentine reportedly became a candidate to serve as President Donald Trump's ambassador to Japan, a job that went instead to Bill Haggerty. Valentine has lived most of his life in Stanford outside of the job requirements that have taken him elsewhere. As an independent candidate, Valentine will face two Democrats in the mayoral race, incumbent David Morton and State Representative Caroline Simmons. It's been great to see Stanford grow the way it has over the years, and I want to lead us into that new world that Stanford will be in the future. Valentine said in his campaign video, "The greatest commodity I have is my time, and I want to give my time and energy and my wherewithal back to the city that has given me so much over my lifetime." And before we continue further, I think the first thing that article points me to is I'm not convinced that he's independent that has a left wing interest in mind. I think sometimes on the left we fall into the trap of liking the anti establishment candidate just for the sake of being anti establishment. And that's why Andrew Yang is currently one of the people that has inside track to potentially winning the New York mayoral race.
Yeah, that's fair, Andrew. And I mean, it's hypocritical too, right? Because we literally turn around and told Republicans you are embarrassing for doing that. But okay, the reason I do like and support, I mean, or I would hope I could support Bobby, I should say, is just because I think ideally we need people from these cities to be in charge of these cities, right? Like, who better for somebody who's from the community to galvanize the community? And it doesn't always work like that. You know what? He is famous. He probably has more money than the average American. And sure, there's skepticism, but Andrew, to me, when I view how cities should be run, you wish that the average person had more say, right? And he's not, again, he's not the average person, but if he wasn't famous and the Red Sox coach at one point or a Major League Baseball player, like I'm not sure how many people would know him today anyway, right? Besides people in his city, obviously. Um, and baseball fans, very big baseball fans. But um, just yeah, that's where I come from with it. I view that because who would know the problems better? Who would know the landscape better than somebody who spends all their time there? So uh, I don't fully doubt the good he could do.
Yes, I was going to say if there's a path forward in electoralism,
Mhm.
it's going to come from the bottom up. I think a lot of people get too caught up on the people at the president, the Senate, the House. These people, they're mainly working on the national level. It's the people that work for us at a local level who are definitely more impactful in our day-to-day lives. And it starts with making sure the right person is in office as a mayor or governor. Those are the people who have the most direct influence over you.
Absolutely, and if COVID-19 has taught us anything, it's a good way to wrap it to tie it into our subject earlier. Is just that these frontline workers, these essential workers, they are the real heroes. I mean, we just, the average person does more than I feel they give themselves credit for. In a way, right now, and it's unfortunate that you play the position you do, but our functioning is the only way that the richest people can function, right? Like they need us to do what we do for them to do what to for them to live how they live. And if more people were honest and more people could recognize the power we hold, Andrew, and it ties in also to the work or the general strike. Like we can do so much more in this country if we come together and we galvanize. And I'm hoping Bobby Valentine is somebody who recognizes that. I don't want to count him. I heard what you said, and I would have doubt too. But you would hope that somebody who knows people, really cares about people, would you know just highlight the importance of people. So I just hope that that's. Uh, I would just put a side note, Andrew. Any candidate in the future who wants to run for anything, if you can touch people, like if you can actually care about people, then you can get somewhere. But if you don't, and all you really care about is like how you look, like you want to look like a badass politician, or you want to look like a respected politician, you're not going to. I just think that those days are done. I don't think you're going to win 50% of these people's heart. Like, yes, I think Trump was bad enough to get to that people settled, but I do believe that in terms of going forward, that people are not going to just ignore the bullshit anymore. And I mean, I hope it's that way. That it sounds naive, but I would just hope that people would invest in how much power they actually have.
Yeah, I would say that as well. The big issue is I normally, on principle, against the idea of lesser than two evil voting, but the one exception I do make is for governor. Uh, Even though Jared Polis isn't as progressive as some people would like to view him as, he is still better than your average corporate Democrat and still a better choice than letting a right wing governor who could really be destructive, like a Ron DeSantis.
Yeah, I agree. And when I think of, I mean, and isn't it unfortunate that we are, I mean, obviously that we're forced into this system that settles constantly, but you're right. I mean, at the very least, we need a multitude of candidates that come, that at least have different views on these things. Unfortunately, on one side of the spectrum, too many people agree on things that are just not negotiable. We're not going to negotiate human rights no more. We're not going to, I mean, I just, to me, when I say we, I mean me and people close to me at least. We're just not going to go for it anymore. And uh, I feel that a, that's a feeling I'm getting from a lot of people who are fed up with how general things are, how important things are being passed off as just like regular things. I don't think that they're going to be real, like, epidemics are only epidemics until they affect you, right? So it's like this is something that affects everybody, and I believe that um, our generation has kind of recognized its power, and that I believe that they're going to at least move in the right direction with people who have our best interest at heart.
And I wanted to elaborate further into another thing that we have to uh, do instead on the electoral level than just try to get the right candidates, and that's fight for direct ballot measures like ranked choice voting. We're probably going to have to go state by state in order to pass Medicare for all. That's how Canada got their universal health care, and probably the best organization to look at as an example for fighting for Medicare for all is Whole Washington.
Mm. Yeah, and exactly. Like I always tell people, Andrew, like, look, if you're not going to vote at on the large scale, then but you can vote in your city and you can actually affect change. And that's really where it does start. And especially in a place like Denver, um, or a lot of these cities in Colorado, you can affect change and we can really be an example. I've always felt that Denver was a bit ahead of the curve, but lately I have realized that we are kind of on that bullshit too. But, you know, I see the general interest at heart and people care about people here. Like a lot of people, like I can really say that they care about people, and uh that's why it shocks me to see how many people across the world don't really process it how we do. And you know that's where I always have felt that like Denver could be a real leader in this change. And so to anybody, like, emphasize, if you can vote, you don't need to vote for a president. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you should vote within your city. You should vote within your school district. That stuff really does matter, and that's where it starts.
Yes, I can say that in theory that does make sense, although we're also in a state where voting is definitely a luxury compared to a place where you have to wait a really long ass time in line just to be able to vote at all. But
Yeah.
we've made some progress in the right direction, such as we have independent districting. Uh, we've got full open primaries. If you look back at the ballot measures statewide and locally, we pretty much voted the right way on just about everything. And really, one of the rare L's we took here was Laura Boebert getting elected. And compared to other states, our L's are small compared to several others.
Yeah. Can we? can we kind of like cut off Pueblo, how the United States usually likes to do to Florida? I think for today we can do that. But anyway, yeah, like we really do have a lot of um, forward candidates, and that to me is reassuring. Like I have too many friends that don't believe that real change is coming, and I always sympathize with them. I always empathize with them because I understand that. Like it feels like at you know on on the on a normal level that just we're just so accustomed to recognizing a problem, getting the attention on it, and I think the attention for a lot of people they put hand in hand with solution, and attention does not mean solution, and we need to start taking that next step. Uh, for instance, Lauren Boebert, how does this woman get voted into office? I wouldn't let my kids around her, bro. Like that's not somebody who should have like she shouldn't be in charge of a McDonald's, let alone an actual like she has say within a community, and it's like some of the things that this woman says are like it's just funny, Andrew. Like why does the right get to be radical on that level, but the second the left gets radical on that level, we're considered terrorists? Like it's unbelievable to me how somebody like that could literally be voted to office. Like that is, and I'm gonna be honest, Andrew. I was just prompted on her like 6 months whenever she got famous for the things she was saying in the whatever she went viral for. That's when I found out about her because, like I said, Pueblo's not really. I don't really consider that Colorado. Colorado. So um,
Yes, if you understand her district, I think it makes a lot of sense why she got elected. And as of right now, her challenger is another corporate Democrat. So I imagine that if that person runs against her, that she's probably going to win again. And and that's even though there's certain instances where Colorado voting for candidates is a lot of vote blue no matter who, but that's just not going to work in her district.
you're right, and it's unfortunate because I know a lot of people who go to school in Pueblo or who would go to CSU Pueblo, and they actually really like Pueblo, and I'm always surprised by that. But that's always the trade-off. It's like, yeah, it's like beautiful down here actually, but like there's a lot of cuckoos down here, and that would make sense that a person like that gets voted when the amount of people who I'd imagine think Denver's like this liberal, orgy over here, and they go down to places like Pueblo, and they feel more at home in terms of like the conservatism and whatnot. So hopefully, I mean, you say it's a corporate Democrat. I would say get out of Pueblo then. If yeah, that's probably what I would do.
Well, I wanted to at least make sure this criticism of mine with electoralism is clear is for like sock dims who just want to wait until we put enough progressives in the House and Senate before we can pass things like Medicare for all and living wage and reparations, is that there's states that still have never had a real progressive candidate to vote for.
Yeah,
Well, and it's really only had success in a couple states like New York.
right. And you look at the backlash that he gets. I'm sorry, off the top of my head, I cannot remember who their mayor is, but I'm telling you, he probably gets more flack than Trump does. Like I swear to God, every time, and he gets it from both sides too. He really does. Like it's crazy, and that's the struggles that an independent, a true left candidate is going to struggle with. Like people are afraid of change, and like that's really what we're talking about. Me and Andrew is we're saying that even though the left may be like morally like better on like like on the front page, it doesn't mean that they stand for the right things. It really just like they're a puppet. They literally look like, you know, it's how it looks, and that is just so detrimental to our progression as a country because like like I keep saying, too many people are done with it. They're fed up with it, and I don't blame people, but in independent candidates and true left candidates, they've got to be so mentally focused because so many people are going to try to shake you because they're afraid of change, and that's, you know, but I believe that over time that will become more normalized. Like caring about people will be more normalized, and I truly believe, Andrew, in like 200 years that people will look back like how did, like when they look at history books, if they're books even, whatever, like how did people treat people so badly? Like it's crazy, and they did it for so long, and then they pretended they weren't doing it for so long. So I just, yeah.
Well, this is one of the big reasons I started this show called the Rochford Files is to counter against the mainstream propaganda we get, where you equate these progressive and left candidates in the same light as far right wingers. That's the real type of horseshoe theory that happens. It's being pushed down by mainstream propaganda. They did it a lot in Bernie Sanders' campaign where they tried to equate him to being like Donald Trump.
We failed, Bernie. I'll let you continue. We failed, Bernie.
Unfortunately, he was the compromise, and now there's just going to be a lot of people who are going to exclusively work to organize on the outside, and because you're not going to get a lot of people in who are for the things you want, you're just going to have to bend the will of a lot of people who are on principle not for things until they have to be.
Yeah, preach. And I believe that that's also why you mentioned there's only so many candidates this year. And I believe that, yeah, people who might actually be for the right things are sitting there like, it doesn't even matter. Like, I'm not going to get anywhere with this. Look at Bernie. They wouldn't even support how precious Bernie. Look how innocent the man. Like, all he cared about was people, and that still wasn't enough. That's still not. They went after his taxes too. Like it was instant. Like something had to be wrong with Bernie. Like Andrew, that is why I'm sorry. That's 100% why I didn't vote. I just, if we couldn't get someone like Bernie in there, like, because I'm to be honest, like if there were more candidates like Bernie might even be exposed for somebody like that's not, the ideal candidate. But it's the fact that he's literally like one of the only ones who has even like gotten close. And you're like, okay, well, it looks good, we'll try it, and he doesn't even get past Hillary Clinton. That's couldn't get past Hillary Clinton, and then he couldn't get past Joe Biden, and that's just, to me, it just tells you where we are as a country. Like the
Yeah,
epitome. Yeah.
well, that's where my true acceleration further left started, is pretty much the moment that Bernie Sanders decided to suspend his campaign. That's, and from that moment on, I was like, I'm definitely not voting any Democrats like Joe Biden, like Pete Buttigieg, like Amy Klobuchar, like Kamala Harris.
Beto.
And, I've only further then the summer only further accelerated me more left.
Yep. And that's exactly why I was an instant I will get on your show or your podcast, because I know that you stand for the right things. You're not for the bullshit. And we need more people like you, Andrew. We need more people who are not going to get lazy and fall for all the left propaganda. Like that is exactly what the right wants us to do. That
You
is
mean
exact.
the mainstream?
Yeah, I mean, in general, yeah, yeah.
What
But
liberal propaganda?
Yeah, exactly. And just, like, but I mean, like, yes, yeah, you're right. That is the mainstream. You're right. Excuse me. But, um, yeah, like we've got to be more demanding for the truth, man. Like I feel like God, I feel like Shaggy from Scooby Doo, but we've got to get the truth. Like we've got to get it, and not, but that we don't get it because not enough people care for it, and it's on every level that matters, every level, and voting one of the biggest levels.
And another big thing that this about this show is I'm here to advance left wing policies, left activist based discussions. What I'm not here to do is just be another reactionary to Ben Shapiro or Tucker Carlson or any random famous right winger. That's not what I would enjoy to do.
No, and ever since I found out that Fox News, in their discretion, tells you that this is opinion based, this is not news, like people like Tucker Carlson, it just like, I'm like, how does somebody, even if it's opinion based, how do they get that type of platform? And it's like, it's so dangerous. But then I look at the left side of it and I'm like, realistically, they're doing the same exact thing. But, even though the morals may be different, like, we need more centrists. We need more people who are literally just trying to progress as people. And we literally, it's not, it just starts with reparations for people who have been abused and wrongly treated in this country for so long, Andrew. That's where it starts for me. Like, I can't even begin to move forward unless we're doing it for the actual people that matter. So, yeah.
Yes, and I've learned about how the right way to go about enacting reparations. Like, for example, uh, a channel I really like to watch and support, the Fred Hampton leftist. They talk about how you can't just go for reparations first. You have to attack the sources of Black debt first, like college, health care, predatory loans. They
The
uh,
housing market. Yeah,
yes, those are
exactly.
things that you have to clean up first before they you give them reparations, or else they're just going to lose that money to those same bills.
Absolutely. Education too. It's like, I think education actually might be one of the most important ones that people don't actually take into consideration, because a lot of us don't really like school, but a lot of us like to be educated, and we want to have an idea of what's going on around us. But I think that that's what's important. We need to restructure the entire curriculum, Andrew. We got to restructure the entire system up to down, when it comes to policing, when it comes to the housing market, when it comes to um, jobs, when it comes all of it, Andrew. Like there's not one topic you can talk about without talking about the other. Like that's why I feel we've kind of touched everything in terms of what today, like on a small scale, but we've kind of touched everything that is really wrong with the American society right now.
Yeah, it's we've got a long way to go. And you brought up when you bring up history, you learn that a lot of these figures have been sanitized, like Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King Jr. You don't learn the real story about them through your school.
To be honest, Andrew, I might not have even ever learned about Fred Hampton in high school. At least not enough to where it was like I needed to know who that was. Actually, my friend who is an activist and has been an activist since literally his mother is has considered herself a Black Panther, and um, he has literally had to teach me about people like Fred Hampton. He's had to teach me just so much that I was like, why? Like, it's just not right that I'm not educated at this. But I know damn near every white president ever. I know damn near every, industrialist. I know every, you know, banking, people who own banks. Like, it's just like, why am I not? I only know Malcolm X really. I only know MLK. I only know Rosa Parks. Like, that just tells you our entire curriculum really needs to be adjusted. It needs to actually tell the whole story. It doesn't even tell half of it.
And I think the big theme of what gets left out with like Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, Malcolm X is they they talk about how the white liberal is really the true enemy to progress, and that still holds very true today. Yet
Think,
they get liberals to be more focused on right wingers, just like they get the right to just be focused on your average liberal.
to be more specific, Andrew, MLK literally said the biggest threat to our progress is the white liberal. It is the person on the fence who is afraid to offend somebody. It is not the Ku Klux Klan. It is not corporate America. It is the average person who thinks that their voice doesn't matter. And that's why I've spent the last hour and a half with you, Andrew, trying, and for whoever's watching, and we appreciate you guys, just literally, you matter. You've got to use your voice on some type of scale. And if it matters to you, stand on it, man. You got to stand on something because too many people don't stand on anything. And that's why we are in the position we are today.
And to go further into that, I think that those white liberals are always the ones who, oh, it can't be about me. I'm a good person. I'm for the right things. But then they tell on themselves when there's a issue that where they need to be pro-black on, but they're not truly pro-black.
No, they're just
Increasing police funding is anti-black.
100%. And that's
And
why I
that's the,
know. I'm sorry. Go
yeah, and
ahead.
that's the big issue where a lot of these white liberals tell on themselves when they believe that they that the only way you improve policing is by increasing funding, and we've gotten to the point where they're just too powerful, and if there's any issues that come up, we're better off fixing them from scratch rather than this huge, powerful, authoritarian police state we have.
Right. Right, like support instead of surveillance. And I like what you say, Andrew. Like when I've seen you tweet multiple times about training, this is not about training. And I got into an argument recently with somebody who will stand on the fact that they just need more training. I'm sorry, you can't fix what is already indoctrinated. It is like to a level that it is expected of you. I know you probably saw that video of the cop leader or the cop trainer who is basically telling you like you need to not be afraid to be lethal with your weapon. You need to not be afraid to kill people. And then not to go totally off basis, but this is a guy who is telling his officers that you're basically a pussy if you don't go shoot somebody, and he's telling you the benefits of killing somebody and then going home and sleeping with your wife. Like it is, like I just said, indoctrinated. Get you cannot get rid of this, and this is something that training, no amount of money, no amount of focus is going to fix. We have got to abolish it. And I know so many, even liberals, hate that word abolish because they don't like to think of, oh, what happens when I need help? Who do I go to when I need help? I want to ask everybody. I would ask everybody who thinks that we can abolish police to count how many times you actually needed the police. And then not just that, count how many times they actually helped you. Thank you. And that's my point, is because we are so paranoid, and that's what mainstream propaganda does as well. Left side just as much. We like to pretend that, like, and this feeds into the NRA, like the people are huge on gun rights. You think somebody's going to come take your house. You think somebody's going to come take your life. That is so far from the truth, and it's so unlikely that the fear that they've put into you is what's actually like detrimental to your health. And so these people feel that they need to protect themselves from something that's not there. And let me ask you, Andrew, say the government did turn on all of us and they were like, hey, we're going to war, we don't care, it's us versus the people, military versus the people. You think your 10 guns is going to stop you from a militia? I'm sorry, your 10 guns it ain't going to do nothing, my friend. So that's where I think a lot of people, they feed into this fear. Like, it's not just the right side, it's the left side just as much.
Well, you're mixing up liberals again.
You're right, my bad. God damn it.
But yeah, it's definitely a issue where it's where you get caught up in focusing on the wrong things. Like, for example, even though gun violence is probably a greater cause of gun violence is material conditions rather than the guns themselves, which is why I'm used to think I was more for gun control, but I'm not, because you're just ceding more power away to the police state when you advocate for gun control. And that kind of can bring us into the shooting that took place in Colorado Springs yesterday. And give me a moment to get that article up on screen.
While you do that, I just want to say RIP to the victims, and thoughts and prayers with their families.
Yes, my condolences go out to those people as well. Yeah, let's get this. Yes, now we got it. A gunman opened fire during a birthday party early Sunday morning, leaving a horrific scene with more than a half dozen dead inside a mobile home. Words fall short to describe the tragedy that took place this morning, said Colorado Springs Police Chief Vince Niski. 28 Preakness Way for a gunshot victim. Sounds like there are several people on scene. Colorado Springs Fire Department EMS scanner. The party was happening in a home on Preakness Way at the Canterbury Manufactured Home Community on the east side of the city. Police say the celebration was in full swing at 12:40 a.m. when the boyfriend of one of the victims stormed in with a gun and started shooting. Friends, family, children were gathered inside the trailer to celebrate when the shooting occurred, police said. After he finished shooting at partygoers, police say the suspect took his own life. Sounds like there are more gunshots being fired. Keep your distance on the scanner. When police arrived, 6 people were dead and a 7th was gravely injured. Officers located multiple deceased parties, said Lieutenant Jim Sokolik, spokesman with the Colorado Springs Police Department. Updated triage. We have 1 critical, and that's already been transported, and 6 black on the scanner again. The 7th victim succumbed to the injuries at the hospital. I think we got through that article, the important parts on that article.
Yeah.
So, how does this feel different to you compared to the usual mass shooting?
Like Andrew, like I don't consider myself an expert on any of the things we've talked about today. I just feel like I'm a regular person who um, likes to stay updated with what's going on in the world mostly. And this is what 45 minutes from Denver. If you don't have much traffic, or an hour or so.
Hour and a
Um,
half.
yeah, hour and a half. Sorry. I used to have family that lived in Colorado Springs, and it's just crazy. I Until you told me we were gonna do the topic, I literally did not know that this happened. Like, and I'm on Twitter like as much as most people who like to stay updated on stuff. It just, to me, like you say, how does it feel different? But I mean, it's different because it's literally to the point where it's just completely normalized. Like, we expect it. It's like when you go 3 months without a mass shooting, and you're like, when's the next? Like, it's not like you want it to happen, but you're just like, it's been a while since we've had a mass shooting. Like, I know, like, just the climate that we're in today, it, and it breaks my heart. And again, condolences to the family, and thoughts and prayers are with the family, because it just sounds like this is somebody who was in control of a gun who probably shouldn't have been in control of a gun. And you're right, when you talk about there's not really easy answers when it comes to gun control, and we're kind of in a whirlwind that, or in a hole that kind of feels like we can't get out of. And that's what breaks my heart the most, Andrew. Is just I don't know. I don't have an answer. Like I usually like to think I'd have some sort of solution to this type of stuff, but it just leaves me more heartbroken every time it becomes more modernized.
Um, yes, this is where I feel this is different than your usual mass shooting, which generally takes place in public, while this one took place on private property. So it makes the situation way more complicated. And while I still believe that there's some type of material condition factor that causes shootings to happen, it's more about taking away the conditions that cause people to shoot rather than actual gun control, in my opinion.
Yeah,
And it makes it harder for liberals to cling hard to those gun control propaganda that they normally like to use when it takes place in a public place.
right. And that's again, like that's why it just makes me so heartbroken, because I don't have an answer for this. Because you're right. Like, should we be more focused on the mental health of people? Yes. Should we be more focused on the conditions that like kids are growing up in? Yes. But at the same time, with how accessible these guns are, it just, Andrew, that one just never seemed right to me. Like, I just feel that so many people are in possession of guns who you and I both know should not have guns. And I just feel like it's never as simple as that. But when I evaluate it and I think about the problem, that's just always where I start. I'm like, people who are incapable of controlling their emotions maybe shouldn't even have a driver's license, let alone a gun permit.
What I found different about this is it took about 10 hours for this to, well, 14 hours or so to make national news. And after I heard the news about this, pretty much after that Knicks and Clippers game ended on ABC yesterday, I was trying to look to, oh, ESPN. I tried to look and see if any local stations preempted their coverage for to talk about the shooting. And what I found is that didn't happen. I tried to see if any of the national news stations were talking about it, like CNN, Fox News, MSNBC. No, it was business as usual. And I tried to see if there was a random live stream on YouTube that would have current news coverage on this, and no, it's just one of those moments where even though it's another shooting that should warrant similar coverage to the others, it's just being discarded aside like business as usual.
Right. And like you said, part of that probably has to do with it was a birthday party, it was domestic, and it was on private property, and I get that, but again, this. I mean, how many people do you have to kill to be considered like a mass murderer or a killer? Like, I don't know. Like, to me, it might be two people, and that's
No, it's three.
three. Okay, well, yeah, I was just saying, like in general, like if you kill two people, I'm gonna be looking at you like you're a killer, and I'm sorry, like if forgive me if I look at you different if I put the word mass in front of that, but just in general, this is just another tragedy that comes because we're not focused on mental health. We're not focused on living conditions. We're not focused on, um, you know, real like police support as opposed to police surveillance. We don't have all this stuff available to us, and it just seems to me like when I talk about it more and I listen to more situations like this, it just feels like I get farther away from an answer, Andrew. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really understand where to start on this, and that's again what is so heartbreaking about this.
Yes, and there has not been very much information to that has came out about this prior to and since the initial report, so it was harder to have a in-depth discussion about this
Right,
compared to what your usual mass shooting.
right. And I think why we want to though, Andrew, is because it's again right down the street in terms of the world. Like and it just always hits a little differently when it's in your state or it's somehow related to you. And again, my condolences go out to everybody affected by this, and honestly, everybody affected by gun violence in some way. It's just something that I wish we touched on more. It's something that I wish was more control. I guess not. Like as you've already said, like controlling it may not always be the answer, and it's just that's where you just start shaking your head, and you just wish that people could be better, right?
Yeah. Well, we didn't get to everything we planned to talk about today, but I think we've reached a good stopping point for the premiere episode of the Rochford Files. So, Sonny, do you got anything you'd like to plug real quick before heading out?
Andrew, I want to say thank you for having me on here one more time. It was an honor, and I know you're going to be very successful. This is going to be we got 45 today, but hey, I promise it's going up, and people respect real. That's what I want to say to you. And I have a project coming out. I unfortunately can't give you the dates. I'm having troubles with management, but soon I should be dropping new music. Like I said, on SoundCloud, on Apple Music, on Spotify, Tidal, you name it. Sonny Cay, SonnyCay. Some good stuff for you to listen to if you're a hip hop fan. So, uh, thank you, Andrew.
Don't forget to plug your Twitter accounts as well.
Oh, I'm on Twitter. I'm on two accounts at this point. It's not my burner. It's just my second account. Big Obama's _ DFS is my second account, and Sonny K, two underscores after the K, is my main account. And yeah, and thank you for tuning in, everybody. I really appreciate you guys.
Yes, thank you again, Sonny. Look forward to having you back on as a guest in the future.
Absolutely. And I look forward to talking to you about some daily fantasy sports soon, my friend.
Oh, yes, I'll talk to you after I take a moment to close out the show.
Yes, sir.
Well, everyone, that was Sonny Cay, local rapper here, the first guest on the premiere of the Rochford Files. Yeah, but I would like to uh, get ready to promote what's coming up on Wednesday. I'm supposed to have Larice Ridgway on as my second guest. Then on Friday, I've got uh, Jesse Gines, who's supposed to be on. So the first week slate is full on the Rochford Files. But I would like to go to show you the Patreon page real quick. I just got to type this right. And give me a moment for it to load. Giving me a hard time. And let's get that up. On the screen. And let's increase the size. Oh, there we go. Patreon.com/The Roch Files. And let's take a look at the membership. I got 3 basic levels. Since this is a indie left show that will cover whenever sports intersects with politics, I decided to name the tiers based on sports fan. Consider a low-level sports fan to be casual, $2 a month. Then we got our bandwagoner, $5 a month. Then the highest support level will be diehard. And at this point, it's just basic support. I'm still trying to come up with some interesting upgrades for the show. Oh, for perks for people who are higher level supporters. One thing I'm thinking of is like DraftKings or FanDuel group, since one of my hobbies is playing daily fantasy sports. So I thought that could be one thing that could be part of perk. I know the common ones are Discords. Maybe if I can get enough of the betting community to join on, we could have like a sports bet Discord channel, and maybe we'd be able to exchange our people in that group could say how they feel about bets, and that could be our form of Wall Street bets, and everyone can win some parlays. And yes, I don't got much else to say other than we got a full slate of guests. Please contact me and let me know your comments on how the show went today, some future guests you'd like me to go after. For now, I'm trying to just get a few shows in with mutual connections I've had before I got into the online left sphere. But after like a couple weeks or so, I will try to get some familiar left-wing voices in on this to join me. And I also plan to have some off-topic sports streams on the weekend, either a Saturday or Sunday. So expect a stream Sunday after the regular NBA regular season ends, and we'll break down how the playoffs will go ahead. But other than that, thank you for everyone who was on today and watched my show with the first guest. This has been your host, Andrew Rochford of the Rochford Files, signing off. See you all on Wednesday.